And hello, everybody, and welcome to the Movie Pit Podcast. I am your host, Christian. Yes, I'm feeling much better, and as you can tell, the audio is much better than last week's podcast. I'm not completely better. I still have a bit of a nagging cough, but obviously you won't hear that in the podcast, thanks to the wonders of editing. Yeah, I'm back for this week, feeling much better, and a bit of a lightish news week this week. Of course, it was a long weekend with Labor Day this past week, and it seems like some of the big news items have been dropping, a little bit every day. So, but either way, it's still kind of a lightish news week. We're going to talk about it. We're just going to go right into it. There was no real big news items that came out last week after the podcast went up again because of the Labor Day weekend. So we're just going to jump right into the movie news that came out this week. How about that? So some of these news items are very just like, we don't have to get too much into it. So let's get right into the first one, which is Stanley Tucci will be returning to the Transformers series, Transformers and the Last Night. Or Transformers The Last Night, sorry. I don't want to mix it up. Stanley Tucci will reprise his role from the last film, Extinction, as Joshua Joyce. Joyce was responsible for the creation of Galvatron from the leftover brain of Megatron, and a device from Lockdown called the Seed in the last film, if you need a bit of a reminder. Because I don't blame you if you don't remember that, because I barely remember that. But there you go. So Stanley Tucci coming back for Transformers The Last Night. Alfonso Cuarón will write and direct an untitled family drama set in Mexico. Now, Alfonso Cuarón hasn't directed a film since 2013's Gravity, and now he's back to direct something that might be a little bit more personal to him, at least from the early reports that is being reported at the moment. Cuarón will be partnering with Participant Media for his next film that, again, is untitled, that he will write and direct. The film will be set in Mexico City, where he was born, during the 1970s, and focus on a family living there. So again, it might be a little bit more personal. Again, we don't know what exactly the film will be about, because in the press release there was no big reports. So we do know though that production is set to begin this fall, so we probably will learn a little bit more about the project in the coming months and coming year. Whatever the case though, Cuarón is a fantastic director. He's directed films like again, Gravity. He directed a Spanish film called Y tu mamá también, which is pretty good. He directed Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, which personally is one of my favorite movies of the Harry Potter series. And he also directed The Great, and I still think maybe a little bit still underappreciated Children of Men, which is very fantastic. So there you go. There's Alfonso Cuarón coming back to the director's chair after a bit of a break. And he won't be the only director that's coming back from after a break. We'll get more into that as we delve into the podcast. The next Shanghai sequel will be directed by Napoleon Dynamite director Jared Harris. The Hollywood Reporter reported that the third film in the Shanghai films, which will be called Shanghai Dawn, trying to say that 3 times, is truly in the works and has a director in Jared Harris, who again many fans will know as the director of Napoleon Dynamite.
Tina, you fat lard, come get some dinner. Gosh!
The report back in May said the film was in the works, but it had been pretty quiet since then, so I think a lot of people kind of forgot about it. Owen Wilson and Jackie Chan are, of course, in talks to come back to reprise their roles from Shanghai Noon and Shanghai Nights. The plot details are being kept under wraps at the moment. Shanghai Nights came back all the way out in 2003, so it has been a while since we've seen these characters on the big screen. And again, this won't be the only project we'll talk about that's investing in some sequels long after the original film has come out in the podcast. But it is following this trend, and I don't know if recent trends are going to be kind, or the recent trend will not be kind to sequels that are coming out after a very long hiatus. But we'll see what happens. Well, maybe fans, will want to see another Shanghai movie. We'll see. Sony Pictures is making its own Mulan movie. Disney is currently working on their own live-action adaptation of Mulan, but that won't be the only live-action adaptation, as Sony Pictures is reportedly working on a version of Mulan. There are no details just yet, but the film will shoot in China and work with a Chinese company and will feature mostly a Chinese cast, which will make people probably very happy. There's an assumption that maybe Sony Pictures will be a more mature version than Disney. Of course, Disney will probably be sticking more to the whimsical elements that made their animated film so great. Mulan is one of my favorite Disney animated films.
All right, that's it. Dishonor. Dishonor on your whole family. Make a note of this. Dishonor on you. Dishonor on your cow.
Maybe Sony Pictures will bring in more of the elements of the real story, the actual story behind Mulan. Because Mulan was a real person and that defended her homeland against the Huns and went to war with all these soldiers. So no word yet on what it's going on. It's still in the very early stages, but Sony Pictures put it out there that they are working on a live-action Mulan movie. Reese Witherspoon and Mindy Kaling are in talks to join A Wrinkle in Time. Selma director Ava DuVernay is trying to get a big name cast for a film, which is the adaptation of the beloved novel A Wrinkle in Time. This time, the casting looks to get Reese Witherspoon and Mindy Kaling. The Hollywood Reporter says the two are in negotiations to join the film, and if they sign, they will join the already casted Oprah Winfrey in the film. The book and presumably the movie, which will be written by Frozen writer and co-director Jennifer Lee, follows a young girl named Meg Murray who goes on an interplanetary journey with her brother Charles and their friend Calvin to find her missing father, who was said to have vanished after experimenting with time travel. Along the way, they get help from Miss Whatsit, which Witherspoon is being eyed for, Miss Who, which Mindy Kaling is being eyed for, and Miss Witch, which will be played by Oprah Winfrey. The film will be released by Disney and plans to start production this November in Los Angeles. A Wrinkle in Time currently does not have a release date, but with a cast like that, if they can sign on, and with filming set to begin pretty much in 2 months, I think we'll probably be seeing this sometime later next year, maybe early 2018. We'll see what happens. Johnny Depp is set to star in Labyrinth. No, not that one. The one that everyone knows. Johnny Depp's next project? That didn't sound right. Next project might be a big one. Not if he signs on. He's already signed on. If he can tap back into what made him a good actor that everyone knows he can be. Depp is attached to play Detective Russell Poole in the film Labyrinth, which will be directed by Brad Froman, who directed films like The Lincoln Lawyer and most recently The Infiltrator. Most people probably won't recognize the name of Detective Russell Poole, but Detective Poole was the Los Angeles police detective who investigated the murders of rappers Notorious B.I.G. and Tupac. The film will be an adaptation of journalist Randall Sullivan's book Labyrinth, which has an L.A. capitalized, of course being Los Angeles. The real-life Poole believed that the group, the people that killed Biggie and Tupac were a group of cops who essentially were tied to Death Row Records, more specifically Suge Knight, who you want to believe the story. There's a lot of history there, so if you want to go and check that out, and the Blood Street Gang. So he believed that they were kind of all working, and cops and Suge Knight and the Bloods, he believed that they were all kind of working together essentially to kill these rappers and cover up some stuff, and it's a really interesting and very disturbing story if you want to read into the background of a lot of this stuff. But the result, of course, led Poole to confronting the police chief, and apparently Poole went into early retirement in protest, and more sadly, he actually passed away apparently last August. So it's a very interesting role, to say the least, and Johnny Depp has shown that he can be a good actor. Black Mass, he played Whitey Bulger, and he showed pretty much everyone that he can still act. Despite all the crazy roles that he takes, like Jack Sparrow and the Mad Hatter. He still has, that it factor that we all knew he had. So hopefully, this will turn out great for him. They already have a director in mind. There's no word on when production will actually start, but considering they have Johnny Depp and a director already attached, it looks like right now they're just going to find a writer and fill out the rest of the cast. So maybe this film will go into production sometime next year. Maybe. We don't know, but he is already attached, so it should be interesting to see how this works out, especially considering all the craziness going on in Johnny Depp's life in reality with his, I assume, ex-wife now. I'm actually not sure. I don't keep up to date on my celebrity gossip news. It's not something I do, but Amber Heard, I don't know what's going on there. I mean, I know what's going on there from little bits I've seen on news and Facebook and stuff like that, but I don't know. Hopefully this will take away a little bit from that, but let's move on, shall we, from that? Rebecca Ferguson joins The Greatest Showman on Earth. The P.T. Barnum biopic, The Greatest Showman on Earth, is finally happening. The film has been in the works since 2009, and Hugh Jackman, who has been attached since then, will lead the film, and already has a supporting cast of Zac Efron, Michelle Williams, and Zendaya, and has a Christmas 2017 release date. Now The Wrap reports that Mission Impossible Rogue Nation standout Rebecca Ferguson has joined on to the film to play Swedish opera singer Jenny Lind. Now, for those who don't know, the P.T. Barnum is, of course, the founder of the famous circus that we all know and love, Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey. The film will act as a biopic of how everything came together, and of course, Hugh Jackman will play P.T. Barnum. Now, Ferguson's Lind, the real-life Lind anyway, who knows if maybe, I'm sure they'll probably put this in the film, but in real life, the opera singer Jenny Lind was a prominent figure in music at the time, and in 1850, Lind first arrived in America per Barnum's invitation. She performed 93 large-scale concerts under his management and donated all of her profits to various charitable organizations. That being said, we don't know, again, like I mentioned, we don't know how big her role is going to be. We don't know how deep they're going to go into it. But, cast Rebecca Ferguson in a role in a big movie like this, especially, but a potentially big movie like this, without giving her some significant screen time. Just saying. Alright, so the film will be directed by Michael Gracie, who will be making his feature film directorial debut anyway, after being a visual effects artist and supervisor for most of his career. The film will be written by Michael Ardent, who wrote films like Little Miss Sunshine and Toy Story 3, and he even wrote a little bit of Star Wars The Force Awakens. The Greatest Showman on Earth opens next year on December 25th, so mark it down in your calendars if you want to go check that out. Paul Thomas Anderson and Daniel Day-Lewis will reunite. Back in June, news dropped that director Paul Thomas Anderson and his There Will Be Blood star Daniel Day-Lewis will be reuniting, but the project didn't have a studio until now. The untitled film was just bought by Focus Features at the Toronto International Film Festival, which is going on right now, and while the film doesn't have a title yet, they are aiming to start production early next year for a release date potentially in that same year. So we could be seeing a new Paul Thomas Anderson film sometime next year, at the end of the year. That's kind of the game plan they have going on right now. Little is known about the film other than that it takes place in the contour world of 1950s London. So Daniel Day-Lewis hasn't really done a film since 2012's Lincoln, which gave him an Oscar. And with the release date they're aiming for, it looks like maybe Paul Thomas Anderson wants his own Oscar because he's always been nominated. I don't think he's actually won an Oscar. I think he's always been nominated. But either way, this is really exciting. Of course, There Will Be Blood was fairly talked about a lot when it happened, or when it came out. And anytime these two get together, they make magic together. So I'm pretty sure everyone is excited to see what happens with this film. Lexi Alexander will direct Chris Benoit's biopic Crossface. Lexi Alexander has made a name for herself on TV, directing episodes for hit TV shows like Supergirl, Arrow, and Limitless, and even directing films like Green Street Hooligans and Punisher Warzone. So her name being attached to this biopic kind of drama, as they're putting it, of the late wrestler Chris Benoit is both odd but pretty exciting. The film is based on the book Ring of Hell, the story of Chris Benoit and the fall of the pro wrestling industry by Matthew Randazzo. And the name of the film will be called Crossface, which was the name of one of his finishing moves. Now, the film will tell the true story of former WWE superstar Chris Benoit as he struggles to maintain his family life while the pressures of wrestling caused him to lose control. Now, for those of you who are not wrestling fans, Benoit was a well-respected wrestler in the back in the locker room with all the guys, and a champion in the WWE. But in 2007, the news came out that Benoit had not only committed suicide, he had also sadly took the life of his wife and young son. And when the autopsy was done, the coroner kind of revealed that Benoit had indeed CTE, which was, of course, the disease. I don't know if disease is the right word to use, but it's the thing that's most commonly connected with former NFL players. And they made a Concussion. The movie Concussion is based off the doctor that found this. I don't want to say disorder. I guess I don't know what the right word to use is here, but Benoit was diagnosed with CTE, which is severe brain degeneration. For those of you guys that don't know too much about it, but the disorder was connected with his life, which was wrestling. And since then, the WWE has stayed away from Benoit's name. They pretty much removed him and removed all mentions of him. No one even mentions him at all. They've banned a lot of moves and actions like chair shots to the head or someone diving off doing a headbutt, which is something he did a lot, to prevent their current stars to fall, into that same category and to not get CTE or get severely injured. Now, Alexander confirmed that she will be taking the director's chair on Twitter, saying that it was a heartbreaking, true story about the dark side of wrestling. I couldn't say no to that. So, as you can tell, I am a wrestling fan. I still watch wrestling to this day. Yes, I know it's scripted, whatever, I don't care. I still watch it. So I remember watching Benoit wrestle for years. I remember him wrestling in WCW. I remember him coming over to the WWE, or the WWF as it was known back then. And I wasn't always the biggest fan of Benoit for a while. I did respect him in the ring because he was very technical and he delivered great matches. But when I heard the news, I was sad that he had passed away because, you watch someone for all these years, even though you don't have a personal connection to them, you still, kind of feel for him. And then, I don't think it was right away, or I just didn't read it that same day. I later read that he had committed suicide and that he had killed his family before he did it. So I was left in a different state of shock. And I think a lot of people were at that point. So I'll be interested to see how this kind of plays out on the big screen. Now, this movie was in the works for a while. Yeah, I think it went into production, not in production, obviously, because it would have come up by now. I remember for a while, I think Liv Schreiber was attached as Chris Benoit. They had a different director attached at one point. I don't know. But this movie's been in the works for a while, and now Lexi Alexander is attached. I'm just really interested in seeing if they make this movie and how they will approach the subject. And how they will approach everything. I mean, this is a sensitive subject still. There's still family members from both sides that are still alive, and they kind of been keeping quiet for a while. So, and there's still people obviously in the wrestling industry that knew Chris Benoit, and that they even kind of know. He's not a you don't go there kind of subject. So, I don't know. It should be interesting to see how this plays out on the big screen. I'm very interested in seeing how Lexi Alexander tackles this subject. James Cameron says his Avatar sequels will be a family saga. James Cameron is very adamant about doing the sequels to Avatar, and has already announced there will be 4 sequels, because why the hell not, over the next 7 years. With Avatar 2 set to come out it's coming out in Christmas of 2018. Interview with Variety, James Cameron revealed a little more about the Avatar films, saying that they will be about a family, more specifically Jake and Neytiri's family. Here's his actual quote. Storyline in the sequel really follows Jake and Neytiri and their children. It's more of a family saga about the struggle with humans. Cameron does mention that despite the 2018 release date, they could change the dates again if need be, because obviously a lot of work goes into these Avatar films. Now, previously, Cameron has stated the film or films will feature more of Pandora's environments not seen in the first film, more notably the underwater world of Pandora. Also, there will be new Na'vi and humans introduced, and of course returning cast members like Sigourney Weaver, that played Dr. Grace Augustine, and Stephen Lang, somehow, as Colonel Corwich. Sam Worthington and Zoe Saldana are also expected to return as the leads in Jake and Neytiri. So, again, the Avatar falling into the gap, essentially, of having a sequel that from a film that came out years ago. The first Avatar movie came out in 2009, and it's now 2016, and we won't be seeing Avatar 2 until 2018. After that, Avatar 3, whether you like it or not, is set to come out in 2020, Avatar 4 in 2022, and Avatar 5 in 2023. So the plan, obviously, with those release dates is that Cameron wants to shoot the films essentially back to back to back to back, which is a smart idea considering, again, a lot of work goes into these Avatar films. So you don't, and especially if, they come out and people like them, then you don't want your fan base to wait too long for another one, obviously. I mean, people have been waiting long enough, but, if these sequels turn out to be, or the sequel turns out to be good and people want more, then they're going to want, to go in and be popping them out more and more. I didn't mind Avatar when it first came out. I know a lot of people liked Avatar, and then they saw it the second time, and everyone started getting on the hate bandwagon, being like, "Oh, it's a piece of crap. Oh, it's not really that good. It's Dances with Wolves. Why is the end credit card green instead of blue?" All this other stuff. Justifiable comments, obviously some with more credit than other ones, or credibility, I should say, than other ones. But I didn't mind Avatar. It wasn't that bad. There are moments where it's not good, but there are moments where it's really good. There are moments where you can tell, oh, this is a James Cameron movie. But I do fall into the idea that, well, not the idea, on the side that a sequel now is really, really late. I mean, we've seen what happens when you wait really long for a sequel. I'm looking at you, Independence Day Resurgence, you piece of crap of a movie. But nothing against the people in it, just the movie itself was not very good. But I don't know. I mean, again, if it turns out to be great, then cool. If it turns out to suck, then, we'll have more Avatar movies to judge after that, I guess. I don't know. It's hard to talk about. I don't know. It's not hard to talk about. It's easy to talk about. But at the same time, it's like, James Cameron is this very passionate filmmaker where he will, he has an idea, he's going to do it. He had the idea for Avatar, like when he did Titanic, and he waited until the special effects were right and were good enough to actually film this movie. So I don't know. I mean, if they're good, they're good. If they're not good, then, we have the right to judge James Cameron and Avatar movies. But, I'm not going to jump on the hate wagon just because I'm not that kind of person. Alright, let's move on. James Gunn says the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 trailer will drop sometime in December, so stop asking him. James Gunn went on his Facebook account, and he did this really funny thing where he did a very long post, which I highly recommend you read. I'll try to link it down below in the description area. And he essentially just answers like all these questions that he's been getting from fans. And one of the big ones, of course, was when the trailer was going to drop, because everyone's been asking for the trailer. And James Gunn's been very adamant about how the trailer's going to drop, or when the trailer's going to drop. It's going to drop when it's ready, and all this other stuff. And he finally gave an answer saying that it's going to drop sometime in December. He didn't give a release date, he didn't give a specific date or anything like that. He just said sometime in December. So there you go. Stop asking him. He gave you the answer. The whole thing that he did on Facebook is really kind of funny. If you want to go check it out, it's pretty funny. But that was the big one that I would see a lot of people were pulling from. So there you go. In the last few weeks, maybe even month, there's been a lot of what ifs casting wise, and one of them is this one. David Ayer originally wanted Shia LaBeouf in Suicide Squad, but Warner Brothers said no. So Shia LaBeouf is a wild card in Hollywood. Whatever you want to talk about. He can go from crazy, wearing a bag over his head, to giving worthwhile, great performances in his films. And his new film, American Honey, which I believe comes out in a couple weeks, we'll talk about it here on the podcast, obviously, during the releases segment. But American Honey is getting some really good early reviews from the film festivals it was playing at. And apparently he was doing this kind of character profile piece over on Variety, and I will link the whole interview down below in the description area because it's actually a pretty good read if you want to go check it out. During that interview, he kind of dropped a little bit of a tidbit saying that David Ayer, who had directed LaBeouf in Fury, wanted him in a role in Suicide Squad, and LaBeouf kind of dropped the hints that maybe the role was the role of Scott Eastwood's character. So here's his quote, and at least that's what it sounds like. That it was the role that Scott Eastwood was originally going to play. And this is what he said when before Warner Brothers came in and essentially vetoed Ayer's decision because of LaBeouf's public image. He said this is what he said. The character was different initially. When Will Smith came in, the script changed a bit. That character and Tom Hardy's character, later played by Joe Kinnaman, got written down to build Will up. I don't think Warner Brothers wanted me. I went in to meet and they were like, nah, you're too crazy. You're a good actor, but not in this one. It was a big investment for them. So, and at that time when they were filming, they're right. You see Shia LaBeouf in the movie and part of you, automatically thinks so a few things. Him going crazy, the bag over his head, getting arrested, and of course,
Just do it!
So, I don't know. I mean, there's no denying that LaBeouf is a good actor when given good material. He was great in Fury. Apparently, he's really good in American Honey. And there's been like a lot of his smaller stuff. It's his smaller stuff. It's his independent stuff that he does really good in. And then it's then he goes out and does something crazy. But his comments here though that Ayer wanted him in Suicide Squad for essentially the Scott Eastwood character, which, by the way, the Scott Eastwood character turned out in the film to be totally forgettable. His only real big moment was at the end when, I don't think this is a spoiler at this point since Suicide Squad made a crap ton of money, more money than anyone thought, when he sacrifices himself at the very end to detonate the bomb. His character does nothing throughout the film, so it seemed like that character originally was going to be much different. And with that being said, it sounded like Deathstroke was going to be a lot different. And then Will Smith came in and they changed the character to be a lot more bigger, essentially the lead character. Which of course, when you have Will Smith in your movie, you want to give him a bigger role as much as possible. So I don't know. I mean, it's interesting to kind of imagine what that would be like, but imagining it will also be imagining a complete change in the whole movie. It would have been interesting. It would have been weird to see Shia LaBeouf in Suicide Squad. It probably would have, to be honest with you. But I don't know. It's a big what if moment. Again, the whole interview is down below. It's a worthwhile read. He talks about his early career, working with Spielberg, which leads some other very interesting comments, and his issues with alcohol. Apparently, he's now alcohol free for the most part, anyway. So it's a really good read if you want to go check it out. It's down below in the description area. Billy Crudup joins The Flash. The Flash film with Ezra Miller as Barry Allen / Flash isn't set to come out until March 16th, 2018, but it's already nabbing some big roles and getting some well-known names attached to him. Rick Famuyiwa, who directed Dope, is directing the film and already has a cast of his Dope co-star, or not his co-star, one of his stars since he directed the film. Kirstie Clemons, she was again in Dope and she was also in Neighbors 2, Sorority Rising. She is set to star in the film as Iris West. Ray Fisher is set to star as Victor Stone / Cyborg. And now we have another actor in Billy Crudup. He will be playing Barry Allen's father, Henry Allen. Now, of course, Billy Crudup does have a history with Warner Brothers and DC comic films. He played Dr. Manhattan in Zack Snyder's Watchmen. And, of course, he's done a bunch of other films as well. There's no word yet on how much screen time Henry Allen will get. There's obviously some very various stories to Henry Allen's character and how he, gets involved in the main storyline of his son and his villains, essentially, or his rogues, which are rumored to be the villain for the movie, like Captain Cold and Captain Boomerang, which, of course, was played by Jai Courtney in Suicide Squad, so they want to make that connection again. They could. So I don't know. Billy Crudup, though, I mean, you don't cast someone like him to give him very limited screen time, so I assume that Billy Crudup will probably have a significant amount of screen time in The Flash, for sure. So we'll see what happens there, but, another Zack Snyder connection to the DC Extended Universe. So not much is known about the Flash movie again, besides the rumor that the Rogues will be the villains and the cast that we have so far and the release date. That's pretty much it. So Justice League is still currently filming over in London. I think the next film that starts shooting is I don't know if it's this or Aquaman. I probably should have wrote that down. But I'm sure production, obviously they have a 2018 release date. They're to start filming sometime next year. We'll obviously learn more about The Flash, what it's about, and maybe who else will join. But so far, it's pretty solid. So we'll see what happens. And finally, the big news item this week is once again Deathstroke, but an official casting. Joe Manganiello is indeed playing Deathstroke in the solo Batman film. After multiple rumors, and will he, won't he? It looks like Joe Manganiello is indeed playing the fan favorite character of Deathstroke in the solo Batman film. That, of course, will be directed and co-written by Ben Affleck. The confirmation comes from a pretty good source, I would say. The other Batman co-writer and president/COO of DC Entertainment, Jeff Johns. He confirmed the casting in an interview with the Wall Street Journal. Johns confirmed the news, but stopped short of saying whether Deathstroke will actually appear in Justice League as a teaser for the future. And of course, Justice League is still filming over in London. So that's why I think they were asking, because there could be a chance. And of course, the video that Ben Affleck put up of Deathstroke, which turned out to actually be test footage for the solo Batman film. So I mentioned last week, when it was still a rumor again, that Deathstroke is a great villain. And he's a great villain for the solo Batman film. And the character is worthy of being included in the DC Extended Universe. But as for Manganiello, I don't know how I feel about Manganiello playing Deathstroke just yet. He certainly has the look. You know, he's tall enough. He's obviously muscular enough to go head to head with Ben Affleck's Batman. But I've only seen him in one thing as an actor. I didn't watch True Blood. I know that's where everyone kind of knows him from. I didn't watch either of the Magic Mikes, which I know he's in. I've only seen him in one thing, which is David Ayer's Sabotage, which wasn't all that great. And his character was kind of all the characters in that film are kind of, you know, not very likable and at all. But that's all I've seen him in. And so I don't know if, you know, he has the look for it. I don't know how they're gonna go with him. I don't know how it's gonna end up acting wise. So we'll see what happens. I don't know. But obviously, if they cast Joe Manganiello, I mean, they obviously see something in him. He does have an intensity. We saw it in Sabotage. He does have an intensity to him. He does bring, you know, a certain, you know, intimidation with him, because he's so big and tall and muscular. You know, just look at him, you're like, don't hurt me. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. Either way, the solo Batman movie is being currently worked on, with no production or release date announced just yet. Also, on a side note, during that same interview, Jeff Johns noted that he will try to add some lightness to the universe, beginning with Justice League. Justice League will start to be bringing in some, not, you know, no joke, but at least some lightness into the film after the kind of, you know, droll, dull tone of Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. And he actually said that he never fully, you know, was on board with the gritty tone that the studio went with, but, you know, he's happy now that he can bring some light into the DC Extended Universe. Alright, so let's get to some of the trailers that dropped this week. There was more than a few of them. There's a new trailer for Ouija, Origin of Evil down below. It's still upping up the creepy factor of the film. Of course, it is a prequel/sequel to Ouija. That came out, I think it was a few years ago. There's also the first film for the Will Smith-led film Collateral Beauty. Pretty interesting. It follows Will Smith as a kind of a guy that's going through some personal trauma, and he writes letters to time, love, and death. And one day they all come to visit him and talk to him personally. It's a rather interesting trailer and concept. So we'll see kind of what happens with that film. It looks like a tearjerker. I'm not gonna lie, it looks like a tearjerker, but it has got a pretty solid cast. You got Will Smith in there. You have Edward Norton, Kate Winslet, Keira Knightley, Helen Mirren, Naomi Harris, Michael Pena. It is a pretty good cast. The next trailer is Matthew McConaughey's Gold. And this looks interesting. The film it kind of has a David. I saw it. It kind of one of the comments in the trailer. It said it had a very David O. Russell feel to it, and it does. It has a very David O. Russell American Hustle kind of vibe to it. Matthew McConaughey is essentially kind of playing the Christian Bale role. He kind of changes himself. He got like a bald spot going in the middle of his head. So he plays this guy that he eventually finds a geologist played by Edgar Ramirez to help him find gold in the Indonesian jungle. And he finds it, and of course, things start to go a little off. The film also stars Bryce Dallas Howard in the film. Toby Kebbell's in there as well. It looks pretty good. It looks like a pretty good movie. The trailer does seem like it gives a little bit too much away, but I think it's still gonna find a really good audience. I believe Gold comes out on Christmas Day this year as well. Collateral Beauty being the other film that's coming out on Christmas Day. The new Underworld trailer came out, and it looks interesting. It looks more action-packed, I will say. It looks like it's getting back to the Underworld-esque world instead of kind of going to the human world, which the last film did. It looks very action-packed. Kate Beckinsale's back as Celine. Looks like she's going to be fighting again. She's stuck in the middle of a war between vampires and lichens, but it looks interesting. It doesn't look that bad. At least they'll have a lot of action in it. The one thing I will say about the trailer is that it feels like it may be the last one, or at least the last one for Kate Beckinsale. That's kind of been the rumor that Kate Beckinsale's kind of done with Celine after Blood Wars. The film, the trailer, I should say, has this very nice little recap of all the previous films before it before it jumps to the action for this film. And I don't know how I feel about it yet. I'm still conflicted a little bit. Blood Wars doesn't come out until next year in January, so maybe the next trailer will sell me a little more on the film. We'll see. We'll see. Also, there's a trailer for a Martin Scorsese-produced film called Free Fire, which looks really, really intense and pretty crazy. It's got a great cast. It's got Brie Larson, Armie Hammer, Cillian Murphy, Charlotte Copley, Jack Reinar, Michael Smiley's in there as well. It looks batshit crazy, and it looks so much fun. It looks like so much fun. So the trailers will be down below. There's two trailers actually, and both of them are kind of really red band trailers. One of them says it's a green band, but it's not really true. They're still dropping F-bombs in there, so both red band trailers down there. It's probably my favorite trailer of the week. So that's down there. My other favorite trailer of the week, which is the last trailer, at least at the time of this recording, is the first trailer to Ben Affleck's new film called Live by Night, which is based off a book, and I don't have the writer in front of me. I forgot to put that down, but that movie looks utterly... You want to talk about Free Fire. Both very different films, but this one looks fantastic as well. I mean, the trailer for this was just so good, and I don't know. I mean, it's just you forget sometimes when you see a director's film, when they haven't directed something in a while, and they come back and they do something somewhat different, but somewhat the same what they've done before. You're just like, oh yeah, I mean, obviously. And then that just happens, and you're like, whoa, settle down. That's too awesome. That's what Live by Night was for me. It looks really great. Another trailer that's really just kind of mainly personal. Well, not personal, but I guess it's more of a personal pick for me too. Is called Headshot. It's by the guy. It's the lead star from the movies like The Raid. I always mispronounce his name, so I'm not even going to try to say it. But I also think that one of the other stars from the second one, Brendel, that's like the foreign title for it. She's in there too, from what I can tell from the trailer. So it's really cool. It's also really crazy. If you've seen The Raid or The Raid Redemption, it was called here in America, and Brendel, you will know that this screams out this same team. So it's pretty crazy. So that's down there as well. Alright, so let's get to this week's releases. We have one real big limited release coming out this week, which is the Rob Zombie film that he directed and wrote, called 31. 5 carnival workers are kidnapped and held hostage in an abandoned, hell-like compound when they are forced to participate in a violent game. The goal is to survive 12 hours against a gang of sadistic clowns. The film stars, of course, Sherry Moon Zombie, Lou Temple, Meg Foster, and Michael McDowell. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Rob Zombie, so just putting it out there, but the film's coming out, so I want to let you guys know. So that's kind of the real big one coming out this week, or a limited release anyway coming out this week. Let's get to the wide releases, the first one being The Wildlife. It is a foreign animated film that's been dubbed into English that tells the story of a daring parrot recounting how Robinson Crusoe came to be stranded on a tropical island. The trailer's not doing too much for me. The animation looks a little weird. Obviously, I found out that it was an animated, or it was a foreign animated film, which is the reason why the animation looks so different than American animated films. But the trailer itself isn't really doing too much, so I'm going to pass on this one, but that's just me. The next wide release is When the Bow Breaks. A surrogate mom for a couple becomes dangerously obsessed with a soon-to-be father. The film stars Morris Chestnut, Regina Hall, Jazz Sinclair, and Glenn Morshower. I feel like I've seen this movie. Like, it feels like this movie comes out every other year, where someone goes crazy and tries to kill a family and gets really obsessed. I don't know. I mean, it's not targeted toward me. I mean, I'm not, downplaying the movie in any sort of way, but I don't know. It feels like this movie comes out every year. I don't know. Maybe just me. The next film is The Disappointments Room, written by Wentworth Miller. Yes, that's Wentworth Miller from Prison Break and The Flash and Legends of Tomorrow. And directed by J.D. Caruso, who's directed films like Disturbia, Eagle Eye, and of course will be directing the next XXX film, Return of Xander Cage. A mother, played by Kate Beckinsale, and her young son release unimaginable horrors from the attic of their rural dream house. The film also stars Lucas Till and Gerard McRaney. The film's getting a release date, obviously it's getting released. I'm talking about it. It's getting a wide release, but not as big as a wide release as some of the other films this week. The reason for it, and if you haven't seen any promotion for it, that's basically because they basically kind of moved it. It was supposed to come out later this year. I think it was later this year. And they moved it up because another film got pulled from the schedule, and they're like, oh, we'll just put this film here. And this was like at the beginning of the month, pretty much, that they moved this movie to this release date. So I don't know. We'll see what why did I just yell at you guys? I sound angry. I don't know. It's not getting a lot of release dates, or it's not getting a lot of theater counts at the moment. So we'll see what happens. But the big release this week, of course, is the one that's been getting a lot of promotion, Sully, directed by Clint Eastwood and based on the book by Chelsea Sullenberger. The story of Chelsea Sullenberger, played by Tom Hanks, who became a hero after gliding his plane along the water of the Hudson River, saving all the airplane flight's 155 crew members and passengers, also known as the Miracle on the Hudson. The film will also star Anne Gunn, Laura Linney, Aaron Eckhart, Autumn Reeser, Sam Huntington, Michael O'Malley, Molly Hagan, Ann Cusack, Holt McNary, Chris Bauer, and Jerry Ferrara. The film looks pretty good. It's been getting some pretty good reviews. Some reviews are saying that it's a good movie, but there's some parts that don't work. It's getting, I don't know. I mean, when I heard about the movie, I thought, oh, Clint Eastwood, Tom Hanks talking, doing a movie about, this guy who did just basically did a miracle by landing a plane in the ocean and or the river, I should say, and not having, anything bad happen to anyone on the crew. It's, that leads to like, oh yeah, this movie's going to be great. And then the trailer comes out, and it's a pretty tense trailer, but recently I couldn't shake the feeling that this movie is a lot like Flight, the movie with Denzel Washington that came out, I think it was 2 years ago, maybe even more. But I can't shake the feeling that sometimes it looks kind of like that film. But either way, this movie looks great. I'm gonna go watch it. It's Clint Eastwood, it's Tom Hanks. He's always reliable. Those two are always reliable in anything they do, and having them two kind of come together and work together about this story that is, just an amazing story in general is I think worthwhile and worth watching. So I'm gonna go watch Sully either way. So those are your movies coming out this week. Let's go to the box office predictions. I mentioned last week that I didn't want to do box office predictions, basically because I didn't know what the box office was going to be like because it was Labor Day weekend, and I was right. I was completely wrong on some of these. So my picks last week were Don't Breathe, Suicide Squad, Kubo and the Two Strings, Morgan, and Sausage Party. The actual box office, or I should say this week, because I think they count the Labor Day numbers as well. Don't Breathe at number 1, Suicide Squad hanging in there at number 2, Peach Dragon moved up back to the top 5 at number 3, Kubo and the Two Strings moved down to number 2, and Sausage Party staying in the top 5 at number 5 this weekend during the Labor Day week. So those two big release movies that came out last week, Light Between Two Oceans and Morgan. Light Between Two Oceans came in at number 6, and Morgan came in at number 17. That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad for Morgan. Light Between Oceans was at least in the top 10. And I didn't get a chance to see either one of them. I didn't want to see either one of them. I was going to go out this weekend, and then I decided, you know what? It's Labor Day. I don't want to go out, so I stayed in for the most part. So there you go. That was last week's actual box office. My box office picks for this week. Sully will be number 1. I'm pretty sure everyone's going to turn out to go watch that. Don't Breathe, I think it's going to be number 2. I think When the Bow Breaks will be number 3. Even though it's a movie that I think a lot of people have seen before, I still think people are going to go and go watch it. It's also, When the Bow Breaks is also getting released in a lot more theaters than The Disappointments Room and The Wildlife. When the Bow Breaks and Sully are the two biggest wide releases this week. So I think that also factors into some people's choices. Suicide Squad will stay in the top 5, I think, at number 4. And at number 5, I think it depends on what parents want to take their kids to. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. I think either Peach Dragon or Kubo and the Two Strings are going to battle it out for the number 5 position. If parents really want to take their kids to go see The Wildlife, then I think it might go in there. But one of those kids' movies for sure is going to take the number 5 position, whether it be Peach Dragon, Kubo and the Two Strings, or The Wildlife. It's going to be one of those kids' movies that takes that top 5 spot this week for sure. Leaning a little bit more toward Peach Dragon and Kubo and the Two Strings, only because they've been around long enough and because I've seen those two, and those two are fantastic movies. The Wildlife, it doesn't, I didn't buy it from the trailers, so who knows, but it is a newer animated film, so maybe parents will drive their kids out this week, especially considering that it's the only kids movie coming out this week. So there is that. Alright guys, thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast this week. Bit of a lightish, I should say, news week again because of Labor Day weekend, but that doesn't mean that these news items sucked. There were some pretty big news items this week, of course, that we just talked about. So thank you guys so much. Links to the trailers, I should say, will be down below. Also down below are the links to my written review page, which is movieswithchris.wordpress.com, and the Facebook page, facebook.com/moviepit. You like the Facebook page, you will be up to date on what we're going to talk about on the podcast, and you also see links to the WordPress accounts for my written reviews. So give us a like over there, I really appreciate it. And also, if you're on WordPress, subscribe to my page. If not, bookmark the page, and you guys will be seeing my reviews. I always update the page on the weekends. That's when I see the movies. And I've been doing this new thing where I've been doing mini reviews. So when I don't do a full review for movies that I've watched, I'll put like 3, maybe 4 together and put it out there. It's something new I've done. This week's mini reviews are Hell or High Water, War Dogs, and Ben-Hur. So that's up there. The last mini reviews that I did were for Kubo and the Two Strings, Peach Dragon, and The Mechanic Resurrection. But go check it out. I always do some other stuff. I'm trying to do a lot more stuff on the WordPress account there too, so it's not just an active page on the weekends. Also down below in the description area is the link to the Shia LaBeouf Variety article. So you guys can go check that out. And of course, the links to the trailers for the movies for the new trailers that I talked about. So thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast this week. It was again a very interesting one. Let me know what you're going to be watching this weekend. We've got a few choices, and also just be careful, just be safe, And as always, as we like to end the podcast here, go watch some movies.